What's going on, guys, gals, and non-binary pals? Welcome to the Nintendo Select Podcast, a weekly Nintendo Switch retrospective and nostalgia podcast where we talk about our favorite Switch memories, hosted by me, Charlie Wackles.
And me, Tucker Hazel.
This week, I'm at BLBHQ, so we thought we'd do something a little special, an in-person Q&A episode. We asked y'all for questions about damn near anything Switch or Nintendo-related on Twitter and our Discord community, all linked below, by the way, and y'all delivered. So, Tucker, let's, What do you want to address first? The silly questions, the serious questions, the in between questions? Because I like skimmed some of these. I didn't read everything of everything.
No, yeah.
So
I think we got to start with the Nintendo one because this is a Nintendo show. There are some non-Nintendo related questions in here that are just like trying to mess with us or like get us to say some goofy stuff, and we will. But I think a serious Nintendo one's probably a good place to start. Warm us up a bit, get us into the Nintendo talking mood. And I believe a man who's probably sleeping upstairs right now, Abram Buhner, left something that was intended to be like pretty serious about Nintendo. Yeah, here it is. Abram Buhner asks, which library do you prefer, 3DS or DS?
So that's an interesting question because like aside from Pokemon, I don't feel like I have a very good grasp on the DS library.
Okay, sure.
Like I played like New Super Mario Bros, but I never owned it. I played Mario Kart.
Yeah.
I never played Super Mario 64 DS. Like I never played a lot of like the big Nintendo games. I never played like pretty much any of the iconic stuff aside from the Pokemon, which I do think like that is the best era of Pokemon.
Yeah, well, and I would say also the best era for spin-offs. There were a lot of spin-offs on DS as well.
That's true. That's true.
So are you going with DS or are you going to go with 3DS because you have more experience with it?
I would say 3DS just because like, I don't know. I think more of my personal favorite games are, well, I don't know, because Heart Gold Soul Silver I think is like up there as like one of the best remakes of all time.
Sure, yeah.
I think
people still praise that game a lot today. And I think that actually, I don't know if this is true. Someone can fact check me on this if they want. I think that's the Pokemon game that like holds its value the best because that's always the one you see like going for like $200 at like loose at a fucking convention.
The Heart Gold Soul Silver and then all of the well actually Pokemon Black and White
definitely
are also very expensive. And then all the GBA Pokemon games, like any of the ones with the colored cartridges are like fucking crazy expensive. It's absurd.
Is it possible for them to bring back colored cartridges? Like a Switch cartridge is a little black plastic thing. They can print it with a different color plastic, right?
They did for the DS.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a problem. Sometimes they stopped on the 3DS.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were different colored. They were just all black instead of gray, which is like whatever. I don't know. I think it would be cool to see that come back for the Switch too. But physical media is such like an afterthought. It feels like these days that like I doubt it would happen. What about you? What's your 3DS versus DS pick? Are you looking at the library?
Yeah, I'm looking at my ranking of each of these libraries. So my favorite DS games are mostly Pokemon games. Pearl was my very first video game, playing Pokemon Pearl. Cherry Red, DRS Lite.
Yeah.
I love Platinum even more. It's a better game. Black, White 2, Black 2. These are all great games. So
Black
Pokemon
2, I think, is the best Pokemon game.
Yeah, that's one I need to like really sit down and give another shot. I do love that game though. But there are a few like quote unquote deeper cuts that I really do like on DS. I'm a big Professor Layton guy, and so Curious Village, Diabolical Box, and Unbound Future I think are all fantastic. And then I like this game a lot. A Metroidvania called Monster Tale that was published by Majesco, where you play as this little girl and you're like platforming and shooting on the top screen, and on the bottom screen it's a pet sim where you take care of a little animal, a guy named Chomp, and you like collect items in the level and you send them down to the bottom screen and he like trains and like eats and like gets new abilities and then he can come up to the top screen and fight for you. That game is really, really special for me. I think that actually might have been the first Metroidvania I played, and so that's certainly what helped to get me in the genre. There are a lot of special games for me on DS, but I think I also end up falling in a similar camp to you where when I was younger and actively playing on DS and seeking out DS games, I really only cared about Pokemon.
Yeah.
And so I played basically every Pokemon game on the system, and I've even gone back and played things like I played Pokemon Dash on DS, which is not a good game, but Pokemon is certainly what bubbles to mind first when I think about DS.
Yeah.
But I missed or didn't really care too much about most of the other big first party games on DS when I was a kid. And so I played New Super DS, and that's a fine game, and I've got some nostalgia for that, but I'm not a straight up 2D Mario guy just in general. And Mario Kart DS is fine. I have not played.
Oh, I think Mario Kart DS is one of the better games in the series. It's considered some. Oh no, that's Wii that people say is the Melee of the Mario Kart games. But DS has a lot of like interesting tech.
Maybe DS is the Brawl because it's got the story mode.
Yeah, the story mode is really interesting.
Kind of like what's the campaign in Brawl called again?
Subspace Emissary. Also a Metroidvania. At the end.
And the one last big level.
The Great Maze.
But some other deeper cuts for me to shout out. I was really into Scribblenauts when I was a kid.
Yeah, I feel like that was like very much like one of those games that like our generation collectively remembers, but like is not a thing anymore.
No. Because I mean they've tried, but it hasn't really worked. But so Scribblenauts and Super Scribblenauts, great games. Elite Beat Agents. I don't know if you've played that.
Played it.
Great
really
rhythm game. I think you'd really like.
I would absolutely fuck with that. I love rhythm games.
And then I really liked. I played all the Pokemon Ranger games. Have you played those?
No, I've only played the mainline Pokemon games pretty much.
And then I also like Big Brain Academy a lot. I like the whole series of Big Brain Academy, and as you can tell, with my rippling forehead, it really paid off. But yeah,
I don't know. I feel
DS is filled with mostly for me like things that didn't quite work, or like a lot of these games. I played 53 DS games. That's a lot of fucking DS games.
I played a hell of a lot of like Lego Star Wars. Like Lego Star Wars 2 for the DS is one of the weirdest games out there.
Yeah.
Because you know how like every Lego game, especially the Lego Star Wars games back in the day, were like they were different on every platform.
Mm-hmm.
Lego Star Wars 2 on the DS was especially different. Like, do you remember the Hoth level?
Not particularly.
Dude, if you go back and play that Hoth level, it is the weirdest thing. Or the Endor level. The Endor level
I do remember that one because it's really hard.
It's really hard, and you can break the game by like you can play it's impossible to beat that Endor level. I swear to God, there's like multiple things that are like designed to just fuck you over. And then the very last level of that game for episode 6 is really obviously it's difficult to unlock, but you can just glitch it and walk in. It's really, really strange.
Yeah, so there's a lot of weird stuff on DS, but I do think that for me, and this is a sentiment that I just share across games history, across consoles, is I generally trend towards the improvements and design trends of newer things being more preferable to me. And so 3DS, I think I just prefer in general, because when I look at this group of DS games, there's certainly a solid chunk that I really, really enjoy and really care about. But 3DS, I think that library just appeals to me more on a wider level. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say even the Pokemon games I prefer on 3DS. Okay. X, Y, or Mega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, all the Sun and Moon games. Those are in my like top
Sun and Moon
6
have
games.
really good stories.
I agree.
Love the story of those games. I feel like also the thing with the 3DS library is it has for me much greater appeal in terms of like games that are me as video games aside from Pokemon, because like as much as I love Pokemon, like you're gonna scratch the same itch by playing through most of the Pokemon, especially before Sword and Shield. A lot of the Pokemon games fall along very similar paths, right? They all look and feel a very similar way. They all have very specific gimmicks that change from game to game. But like you're still battling creatures, you're still doing the same battle system, you're still collecting badges. But for me, I mean, the 3DS has a Smash Brothers. And as you've seen last night,
Smash 3DS.
I have an itch that must scratch when it comes to Smash.
And Smash 3DS is a very good game. I think I don't think it gets the praise it deserves. People are like, oh yeah, the visuals are all crunched down. You got the thick outlines on the characters or whatever.
You can change that though. You can change
that. I know you can, but like people use this as complaints against the game.
That's what I'm saying though. Is like
and I don't think it's fair, because that was my version of Smash 4 that I really got into because I could take it with me. And I'm a sicko, so I like the 3DS as a controller for Smash.
I used that as a controller for a very long time.
And it was also very cool that you could connect it to the Wii U and just use it as a controller.
And you could bring in your custom characters and stuff. It was really cool. I
think that's my Smash Run's great, but I think that also has my favorite. It's not the story mode. It's like a single player mode where you like choose the path. What's it?
Oh, classic mode.
Oh, the classic mode. I think that's my favorite classic mode.
Yeah,
because I really like the splitting path, choosing your choosing your difficulty, but also choosing your reward. That was really, really cool. I think also the trophy collection and the maybe the best moves. And the custom moves. Yeah, Smash 3DS. Really,
Kid Icarus Uprising. Yeah, I mean Mario Kart 7 was excellent. Obviously, again, a lot of the Pokemon games. Samus Returns.
Sure, yeah.
Samus Returns is an excellent game that I think with Dread being what it is.
Yeah,
people kind of don't maybe love Samus Returns as much anymore looking back with hindsight, but I don't know. I think the 3DS is a really killer library, especially once you get into the indies and downloadable titles too.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Samus Returns is interesting because that game, I think, is in my mind, perfect kind of remake in that it is so different from the original that it feels like a new game.
Yeah,
I haven't played Metroid 2 extensively, but the idea that they're not calling it Metroid 2, it's Metroid Samus Returns, totally overhauled visuals, totally overhauled combat. Like, it is a game that basically you can approach very easily as a modern Metroid game. You might feel some structure oddities and things because it's based on a Game Boy game.
That has really weird structure.
Yeah. But the fact that revived Metroid cannot be understated, and it being a good game in itself. Another series that was popularized and sort of reinvented on 3DS, Fire Emblem.
Yeah, I never
lots
played
of good
those,
Fire Emblem games on 3DS.
Fire Emblem Awakening is
I love Awakening,
series,
and I also personally love Fates a lot.
I know Fates was a little bit more controversial.
It was a little more controversial because they split it into 3 games.
Yeah,
and then in 3 houses they stuck them back together. I have not played Echoes Shadows of Valentia yet, but I'm sure I also enjoyed that game a lot. I would also go out on a limb and say the 3DS probably has the best 2D Zelda to this point. Link Between Worlds, just a fantastic game. It is another one of those things, but it's a remake kind of Link Between Worlds, of Link to the Past, but it's so different.
But I haven't played any Super Mario 3D Land.
Oh, I hate that game actually.
I love that game.
I cannot say
that game blew my fucking mind. When I found out I could play a full 3D Mario game on my 3DS, I was like, "Yo, are
we serious?
Does the public know about this?
Yeah, they let them do this?
Like, are they gonna get the cops called on them? What the fuck is going on? Why can we do this all of a sudden?"
Yeah. I think also at the age that we are, though, we grew up with DSs. 3DS having a much closer handheld to home console parity in terms of they look quite a lot like Wii games, and there are ports from other systems on there. You've got Ocarina of Time 3D and Star Fox 64 3D and things like that.
Star Fox 64 3D.
The 3DS to me felt more impressive because DS for me it was cool that it was a 2-screen gimmick and that was portable, and I love my DS, but I was never really blown away by a DS game in the way that someone might have if they were going from GBA as their one of their original systems to DS. But 3DS, I was playing these games on a 3D Pokemon and looking at how much better to
with
my
the
eyes.
3D effects too.
Yeah, true. But
come on,
how much better to my eyes X and Y looks. There's this big open environments and then you can actually go behind things versus the DS games, which I think look good. But that 3D really impressed me.
Same. And I think looking back, I will say I think I definitely nowadays prefer the look of the DS Pokemon games. I think that sprite work is immaculate, especially for Black and White 2. Having the animated sprites and everything I think is really sick. But also I think at the time I was very much Tomodachi Life.
Some other good picks. Planet Robot, Kirby Planet Robot. People still to this day say that's the best 2D Kirby game, and I certainly would contend that. I think Hey Pikmin is very underrated. I actually really like that game.
Never played a Pikmin game, famously. I'm surprised. We can't tell Abram because he will come down here and he will drag my ass out of here.
And then, of course, Animal Crossing New Leaf. I mean,
never played it.
A lot of people still can say that that's the best in the series.
Wow.
I think it's New Horizons. I like New Horizons actually a lot more. And that's a controversial statement, especially for Animal Crossing fans. But you can't go through 3DS and not mention Animal Crossing New Leaf as maybe one of the fan favorite games that Nintendo's ever made.
So I think we're pretty firmly camp 3DS.
I think 3DS, because the library just feels more expansive to me, and I also think there are less misses. When I go back and explore the first party games on DS, they publish a lot of spin-offs. They publish a lot of let's just give this IP to a C-tier creator, and they're gonna pump out whatever the hell. And there's Wario Master of Disguise, which isn't very good, and there's Super Princess Peach, which isn't very good, and there's Pokemon Dash, which isn't very good, and Yoshi Touch and Go, which isn't very good. Exploring the breadth of that library, I find a lot of games that are this is really just created to have the gimmick of 2 screens, something like Pokemon Dash or Yoshi Touch and Go, or let's just get the IP on there. And 3DS, I think, doesn't feel as much we just need a game in this series on this system. There's a little bit of that as you get to the end of the 3DS, and once Switch had come out, and they're okay, well, let's just get a bunch of Mario games out there, and Mario Party Top 100 comes out.
And fucking Samus Returns for some goddamn reason.
After Switch. But for most of 3DS's life cycle, it was games that were like maybe considered some of the best of their series, which I don't think really happened on DS. There's not a lot of like, oh, this is the peak of that series. Like, oh, that's like the redheaded stepchild, like weird version. Like people don't even consider the 2D Zelda games on DS.
Yeah, they're like people don't like them.
They're not like people are like, oh, are those even mainline games? Like people just kind of skip over them, and there's not its own 3D Mario and things. So yeah, I think 3DS is to me the clear winner. There is a lot of stuff on there, particularly JRPGs that I have not experienced yet, so I'm not done with the exploring the DS's library. But 3DS just appeals to me a lot more. I think we made a good case.
Yes, I think so too.
What are you peering around for?
I'm trying to think about it. So Abram asked another
second question. Yes, might as well get to it now.
He also asked what I think the weirdest thing that they have here on the BLB sets is. And I'm inclined to go with this like Mario Duck.
Oh, look at that! Yeah,
I like the Mario Duck quite a bit.
That's
nice and funky. I would go with the bone, but that feels like cheating because like the last time we recorded, you pointed it out.
Yes.
I don't know what the hell this PlayStation Wonder Book is.
You don't know what the Wonder Book is?
No.
You want to take a look at the Wonder Book?
Yeah, let's see what this is.
The Wonder Book, PS3 peripheral for PlayStation Eye. Why don't you take a look at this? Open it up and show it to the camera. Look at that. This is the Wonder Book.
I can't read this.
No.
Yeah, Am I illiterate?
Well, okay. Then check out the next page at least.
Oh God.
It's basically the same thing. Yeah. So this is a peripheral where you pointed the camera at it and it like did like AR. These are basically like QR codes. And so like it would do like little AR holograms. And you could like mess around with it and stuff. Yeah. This is one of my favorite things I own. It's very weird.
That's really weird. That's really cool though.
There were only 4 games made for it, if you can believe it or not.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah,
anything else?
I feel like that and the duck and this guy who's trying to shoot himself. I feel like those are pretty funky.
That's Martin Freeman's character from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Which is just funny that they made an action figure for him.
That is goofy as hell.
All right, well, we've gone through a very serious question that got some good debate and discussion, but we also did a goofy question. Let's see what else we've got. Our friend Adam Hurd here says, if you were magically whisked away, in front of you stands Shigeru Miyamoto donning nothing but a Tingle costume and a magic wand, and it tells you that you have one Nintendo wish. It can be anything, and he will do the magical Tingle dance and it will come true. What is your one Nintendo wish granted by Tingle Miyamoto? Christ.
You go first. I'm trying to think of a good title for mine.
A title for your wish? Mm-hmm. Are you actually going to explain it? Like, you got a fucking one-word pitch? An elevator pitch for this thing?
You'll see.
Okay. One Nintendo wish. My Nintendo wish would be to give Game Freak a break. Yeah. They've got, and which is kind of what they're doing right now.
The Pokemon machine needs to slow down.
Yeah, it needs to slow down. The games and the quality of the reputation of Game Freak as a developer, the shaky relationship that fans have to the games, things being changed a lot. Yeah. There is a perfect Pokemon game out there.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of great Pokemon games, but I think almost every single Pokemon game has a caveat to it, which is really unfortunate. And it's something that does not apply to most Nintendo games. Nintendo's games are usually the most polished in the industry. Pokemon is not that. No. Even though as much as I love it, and it's not, I don't think it's Nintendo pushing Game Freak to do this necessarily, but in the realm of Nintendo, companies. Yes, in the realm of Nintendo and Nintendo adjacent games and companies, the Pokemon series
has been really fraught, especially during the Switch era. And I think like, I don't know, like the Switch era Pokemon games, I think if you find the nexus between all three of them, right? Something that runs
all 5 of them. There are 5 Pokemon games on Switch.
There are 5 Pokemon games on Switch. If you find the nexus between all of them, I think you're circling around the best Pokemon game.
Yeah.
And because I think Scarlet and Violet, if it ran well, would probably be top 3.
Yeah, I mean, it is top 3 for me. And so is Legends Arceus.
I personally think so. Yeah. And Legends Arceus, I also think is great.
It's a great goddamn game.
But no, I do think that the Switch is probably second or third best console as far as Pokemon stuff goes. I think the DS is by far the best. And I think the closest rival to the Switch era is probably the GBA era because that sprite work is just fucking insane. For me, my Shigeru Miyamoto wish.
Oh, all right. Did you come up with the title? Do you want to explain it and then see if you can like deliver the title like a punchline at the end, or no?
F-Zero RGG Studios.
Oh.
F-Zero Chase Down.
Chase Down. Okay. F-Zero Chase Down.
You're playing as Captain Falcon. You're taking on bounties. You're beating the shit out of bad guys. Yeah. You're racing. You're doing like Yakuza-ass side quests. You're doing all sorts of crazy, silly, goofy shit as Captain Falcon. Yeah. That's it. That's all I want.
And we talked a little bit
talked about that with Logan Plant.
Exactly. You know? on our games not on Switch video. And I agree with that, because that to me feels like the modern Nintendo reinvention of a series, in the way that we've gotten things like the first 3D Kirby and the first open world Pokemon and the first open world Zelda and like all these things.
And that way you get to actually see Captain Falcon, which is far and away the most iconic part of F-Zero at this point. More iconic in Smash than F-Zero, because he is in Smash.
Yeah. That's an amazing wish, because like that I think could catapult F-Zero to frankly relevancy that it has never really had.
I mean, do you know how many RGG Studios sickos there are? Do you know how many diehards there are that pretty much only play the Yakuza games?
And also, it's not
because there's so fucking many of them.
I was just going to say,
how many of them came out this year? Like
one came out this year, 2 came out last year, but it was like 3 within a 12-month window. And that's
not even 12 months. It was like 2 or 3 or 4 months. It was
no.
It was like end of the year. 2 at the end of the year last year, and then 1 in January.
There was the man with no name or whatever the fuck,
and then Ishin.
No, Ishin was like March of last year. Yeah, that was earlier in the year. Don't worry about it. It's all right. But to that point, I think that is a perfect wish, because it's not unrealistic.
Oh wait, never mind. Sorry.
All right.
I'm bugging.
He's bugging. We had a party last night. We're maybe not operating at max capacity, but he's leaving in like an hour, so we gotta get out of here. He's got something called Busy Cold Brew, Bizzy. Look at that.
Please sponsor.
To the point of they put out a lot of games. This is also something that's not particularly realistic, because it would mean to take a Nintendo collaborating, which isn't the worst thing, but it's not like this would take away like massive resources from RGG, because they made another game, Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania. Or no, that's a new one, right? Banana Rumble. Banana Mania was a collection. Yes. But they have a great turnaround time and are very efficient with their game production. And obviously this one will be a little bit different, because it'll be built from the ground up with new textures and stuff, which is what helps make Yakuza games come out so quickly, as they're just able to reuse a lot of stuff. But they can use the bones that they've built on all these Yakuza games and the combat structure and all these things, that they would be able to turn that out in 2 years or whatever, and it wouldn't like take too much away from their output. Whereas you're like, I want Rockstar to make a open world F-Zero game, and that would take 12 years.
I love GTA 5. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I would never want Rockstar to make a fucking F-Zero game. If anything, Rockstar's making Kirby Air Ride 2. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, baby.
All right, let's
give him some weird. Pull some over here.
Let's look what the fine folks on a dying website have to say.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Jason Finelli asks, with Famicom Detective Series now getting a brand new entry, are there any other old dormant Nintendo IP you'd want them to follow a similar path? Re-releases followed by a new entry if the re-releases do well enough. And I think we did talk about this a little bit in our episode about kind of series that didn't make it onto the Switch. But we did just talk about the RGG Studio F-Zero thing.
Yeah.
But is there... What stands out to you as like something that you would like to see make a comeback either on Switch or Switch 2?
Well, most of my favorite games are represented in some way, or at least have been brought back. I mean, you can talk about weird things like Pokemon Snap. Okay, we got a Pokemon Snap on there. The Switch has really covered a lot of its bases. But I mean, this is not... I mean, these games were published by Nintendo initially, but I think Banjo-Kazooie, it's obviously an Xbox thing, but I think that at the point that we're at...
I don't think that matters too much as long as it's on both.
Right? That's my point. At the point that we're at, it's not impossible that this would be a Switch and Xbox thing. And then maybe they'd also put it on PlayStation, but Nintendo published those games. Rare had such a good connection with them back in the day. Yeah. I think that trying to repair that Nintendo energy in Rare that they've lost over the course of the years working with Microsoft, I think would give like everyone involved more faith. And Banjo-Kazooie No, actually, both of them I believe are on NS, or at least I know for a fact
Banjo-Kazooie is definitely on NS.
And I believe Banjo-Tooie will probably hit. They often do dumps of rare games.
Yeah,
I remember the one with like RC Pro-Am and Snake Rattle and Roll, and like they really are
Rare
able to
was
reach...
just making fucking games back in the day. It's crazy how many rare games there are before Banjo and Kazooie.
Yes, but Banjo-Kazooie, like a light remaster of those games. People like to make like Banjo-Kazooie in like Unreal Engine or whatever, and they still look very good. So I think that if you did like a light remake of those with some cleaned up visuals, and then put out a third one, that would, and have it be sort of a more collaboration between Xbox and Nintendo, or Rare and Nintendo, that would be. I mean, I love Banjo so much. That would be like a dream. It's not Nintendo exactly, but you guys know what I mean.
Yeah. So my first knee-jerk reaction is Kid Icarus.
Okay, yeah,
because but it feels
re-releases
so,
of Kid Icarus and of Missing Monsters.
It doesn't. Okay, let's not get crazy here. Because it feels like a cop out to say Kid Icarus Uprising re-release because it's so recent, and so I think honestly, like, I have no affinity for this series. I have no connection to it. Star Tropics.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, actually, interestingly enough, I mean, I like Nintendo's RPG series in Fire Emblem and Xenoblade. Those are two of my favorite series. But I've been talking recently with my friend Bo, who's also a big fan of both those series. Being like, friend of the show, literally. Nintendo needs a new RPG IP, frankly. So? And
that's what Monolith is doing, right?
Hopefully, ideally. But it also might be Xenoblank, and then does that count as a new IP? Because, Star Tropics obviously isn't that, because that's not a new IP, but it's an IP that's been so dormant for so long.
You can do anything the fuck you want with it.
Yeah, in the vein of Famicom Detective Club, it's not relevant to the modern day, and it's not an IP people have any reverence for. So you remaster the first game. I actually have no idea how many Star Tropics games there are. Is there just the one?
No clue.
I feel like
genuinely, I have no affinity for this series. I've never played Star Tropics. I'm just like, because it's like a Zelda-like. It's like a Zelda with a little bit more RPG going on. Yeah, I think,
and then you can from the ground up make a. I mean, my mind goes to something like Visions or Trials of Mana, like that, with that anime art style, nice open worlds, flowing grass, all this stuff. But just like, this is belying my no knowledge of Star Tropics. But that's what I imagine of like a seafaring RPG with like a nice anime Ghibli aesthetic.
Or you go the other direction and you do like something with like, because it's I had it and it was gone because I liked your idea so much.
The Mana games?
What's up?
I said the Mana games?
Yeah, kind of. I was gonna say something like completely different in terms of like, because Nintendo's tone is so specific, and then when we get outside of that tone, it is a different kind of specific, right? It becomes like the kind of like anime like style, or like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. Zelda looks like Ghibli now, right?
Yeah.
I think Star Tropics has an opportunity to do maybe like a Zelda-ish thing in a completely different aesthetic and vibe.
Sure.
Like maybe sci-fi, maybe pirates. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck Star Tropics is aside from it's like Zelda, you know? So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a very cool one. That'd be really cool to see them bring back.
1E for nothing at Non-Trotsky asks, sorry if you've talked about this already, but what do you make of a potential future where Adult Link and Toon Link are replaced by Blue Shirt Link and Toy Link?
So what he's asking really is, in terms of iconography of the Zelda series,
Smash Brothers roster representation,
and showing up on billboards and like on like compilations of Nintendo art for like, I don't even know if they do this anymore. Like when they're like printing like a little holiday guide or whatever. It certainly used to be Toon Link and what was the other one? Like Adult Link. Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Adult Link being the iconography representation of what Zelda is as a brand that has multiple styles. And since the Switch era, we still have gotten obviously re-releases of things like Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword is on Switch, but the iconography of Zelda has been replaced by Breath of the Wild Link with that blue shirt.
I mean, it's been such a huge success, and I think that's
it is the most. Here's an interesting question: is it the most iconic Zelda game now? Because by far the most people have played it. By far.
Listen, if I speak,
I'm not ashamed to say I think it is.
I think it's either that or the NES Zelda.
That or I mean I would say Ocarina of Time probably.
But Ocarina of Time isn't on fucking t-shirts every time you go to the mall or whatever. You know what I mean? Every time you step outside, if you see a gamer t-shirt, it's
fair enough.
It's like a man in his 30s wearing a Zelda t-shirt. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like more than anything, it's either that or a one-up mushroom, right?
Yeah. What's interesting about the Breath of the Wild thing, though, is it is the most popular style of Zelda because it sold the most, and it's the best. It's all. I would also say it's the best as well. But I think that era, though, I don't know, maybe I'm defeating my own argument here. That era I think is over now. I don't think we're gonna see another blue shirt Zelda game. Like, we're not continuing this story forward. We're not gonna see this version of Zelda. I mean, why would they? They did 2 games in it.
I haven't finished Tears of the Kingdom yet, so I don't know.
Well, it's not like the ending is like the world blows up or something. But I think they're done. Yeah. And I think they're keeping that contained to Switch. But also, Zelda has been something that's been reinvented basically every single time in terms of aesthetic and
it's interesting. So like what Zelda is.
Yeah. So I think that Toy Link is interesting because I think that Breath of the Wild Link is now the iconic Link. It's what is in Smash. I would be surprised, frankly, if in the next Smash game it was a more Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess Link.
I doubt it.
Because I think that they've left that aesthetic a little bit in the past to the point where whenever I look back at old promotional art for Nintendo and it's got that mid 2000s Twilight Princess Link, I'm like, that just looks weird. Like it's got this like edgy tone to it and the colors are muted. I'm like, let's not go back to
I
that.
prefer the Skyward Sword design.
Me too. Yes.
But I think for me the question comes down to, like, yes, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, massively successful, massively popular. The Toy Link stuff, not so much.
Yeah.
So I hesitate to say that
I wouldn't be
Toy
surprised
Link
if they were
Toon Link fully.
I know, I agree with that because I think that other than the fact that we're seeing Echoes of Wisdom, we'll have to see how that pans out. I think that's probably why he's asking. I think that it's actually more likely that Zelda then becomes represented by Breath of the Wild Link and Toy Zelda or a version of Zelda because I think that they're going to try to push Zelda as a bigger main character.
Or even like the Link of the Worlds, Link Between Worlds style Zelda.
Oh yes, because Link Between Worlds Zelda in the like more pink dress, that was that's what they brought to Ultimate. They redesigned Zelda.
Exactly.
They replaced her fucking Twilight Princess design, which I don't like. That was in Brawl and Smash 4.
Sorry, everybody. Stop.
Good morning.
Stop.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you.
So I think it's possible that we get a Zelda, that Breath of the Wild Link and a Zelda to be the representatives of the series.
Yeah.
Though also he mentions Toon Link. I don't think it's impossible that we see Toon Link again in a new game because that's the aesthetic they've revisited the most times. Because that
people really like Toon Link.
Yeah.
Even though the people don't always like the games.
With the DS ones, you mean? Yeah. But interesting question. I think it does show the evolving iconography of the Zelda series. I think without a doubt, Blue Shirt, Breath of the Wild Link, Link of the Wild is the new iconic version of Link. Which is interesting that they were able to so quickly replace the green associated with Zelda to blue, light blue.
Overnight, it felt like,
Now, the final point is, it is interesting that the buck seems to have, at the moment, stopped with Breath of the Wild in terms of iconography because they have moved that character forward. And Tears of the Kingdom Link, I like his design a lot more.
That design is way cooler.
But
he's tatted up.
He's tatted up. He's got the poop arm. He's got the long hair.
The poop arm?
Yeah, you know. But
does this look like a poop arm to you?
Well, the Raru arm. The arm that got chopped off and replaced with like the spindly...
Oh yeah, I forgot that is not tatted up.
No, it's not. It's like a robot arm. Yeah.
I forgot.
But they don't seem to really want to make that version of Link the iconic version, which I think is fine because it's also the most different looking version of Link, I would say. So it kind of feels cool as its own thing. But yeah, Breath of the Wild Link, I think, is the new gold standard for Zelda, or at least in terms of iconography. So yeah, interesting question.
Joe Richards at Scrufftail asks, out of all Nintendo's IP, excluding Mario and Zelda, is there a franchise you'd both like to see adapted to film? And a broader one, what was a moment of inspiration for the podcast as a whole? So the film question, I think, is interesting.
Yeah.
Because my answers are all going to be the defunct franchises, or currently dormant, I would say. Because the most cinematic Nintendo gets has often been like, I think Star Fox would make for a fucking awesome movie.
Sure, yeah.
You get Patty Jenkins in there, you know what I mean? You get her to do that Rogue Squadron movie, but you
Star
change
Fox.
all the proper nouns in the script. You know what I'm saying? That's Kino.
Yeah,
that's kinography right there. I think that would be awesome. I also think an F-Zero movie could be really cool. You just like my friend Nick would say that you could just watch the Wachowski Speed Racer.
Yeah.
Which, like, sure, but I don't know. I think F-Zero has a lot of potential in that, just because of how, like, what it is. Like, you could make an anime and make. I mean, you already have made an anime out of that. I don't think people like it very much, but I don't know. I think those would be my two picks. What about you?
I think that the problem with most Nintendo games is I don't think they. And I think this was kind of proven with the Super Mario Bros. Movie. They're not really geared towards pushing them into a linear storytelling focused format. Right. Zelda will be very interesting to see. I think that is certainly a mainstream Nintendo IP that is the most where it's like, okay, they are telling stories here, and you can like make a cool adventure movie out of that. But you can't really do that with Kirby. You can't really do that with like Yoshi or something. Donkey Kong could make sense. They might end up doing that. But
they already have their on-screen adaptation. That's really good.
Oh, and cool. The show, the animated show,
good looking.
Yeah. And you can't do that. I don't really think you can or would want to do that with Pikmin. I think the two opposite sides of the coins for Nintendo series that I want to see adapted into films is storytelling focused, something like a Fire Emblem or Xenoblade movie. Those are
Xenoblade
written characters with cool action sequences and a lore to build off of, and in both those cases of both those series, they have a varied source material to pull from. So if you're making a new Fire Emblem world or a new character that's based in that world, it's not the first time that series has been reinvented with new characters and a new world and a new art style. So it wouldn't feel out of place. And then on the other side of the coin, Animal Crossing, I think would really work for a movie because it is a aesthetic that works very well for animation, and you can easily create a character that's the main character, and you can create there are personalities for like the surrounding cast.
Like Isabelle's the main character?
No, I mean like make a character, like create
okay,
either a new animal or a new villager character that would be the protagonist of this film. Because I mean, I guess Isabelle or Tom Nook, you probably wouldn't want to watch a movie about Tom Nook, would be like the current in for that, but there is an Animal Crossing anime movie that I have seen, and it's not very good. But I do think that you can make a fun little, like, home building up a community narrative around a little Animal Crossing village. Movie, absolutely, and I think that would also help to give Animal Crossing a little more of a focus, in that it is a series that is, you're making your own character, and like, okay, Tom Nook and Isabelle are like iconic characters, but if you can make a protagonist for Animal Crossing and a little bit more of a narrative, I think it will work.
To me, Animal Crossing screams TV show.
Okay,
you
sure.
Do like SpongeBob or Chowder length episodes.
I see.
10 minutes each.
Just set in this little world.
And you're focusing on that theme of like building community and stuff like that. But each
episode where they build a bridge, like, the episode where they go chop down trees and pick fruit, or
because
whatever.
I think that fits the structure of day by day progress in Animal Crossing so well. But yeah, I do think Animal Crossing is like low key, like under discussed in that conversation in terms of potential for some kind of adaptation. Tyler Gardner at TMGM528 asks, Fire Emblem, what direction should they go with the series next?
What?
I have never played.
Oh, okay. So you gotta defer to me for that.
I play Marth in Smash 4.
Yeah.
That's
I am a Fire Emblem Zoomer in that I have, frankly, I have zero interest in going back and playing the pre-Awakening ones. If they like remade or re-released Path of Radiance, I know that there's a rumor or more like a soft confirmation that there's a Fire Emblem 4, a game that was like on Super Nintendo or something that they're remaking for Switch. I will play remakes of them, and I want to play Shadows of Valentia at some point, but I think that this question seems to be geared in terms of the Fire Emblem community. Like, let's get rid of the weeby stuff. Let's go back to more like straight turn-based. We don't need the like supporting world and stuff that were introduced in Engage and Three Houses. But that's really the only reason I like those games. is the fact that there is something outside of the battle, which is something that I like Awakening quite a bit, but it really, to me, feels like it's missing that core that was in my favorite Fire Emblem game, Three Houses. Garreg Mach Monastery was a place I loved to be in, that I have memorized, and I knew where everyone lived and stuff, and that really grounded me in this world, and the characters made me care about them a lot more. And for me, Fire Emblem is about that, attaching to your teammates and knowing their personalities, and being sad when they get knocked out, and especially if you're on hardcore and they end up dying and you can't use them again. And so for me, I would like a Fire Emblem that is frankly a more toned down in terms of the complexity of the combat game, that is more focused on the team and community building aspect of Garreg Mach Monastery, or whatever the Somniel, that's what it's called. Yeah. That's the base in Engage. That's my favorite part of it, is building up the little shops and delivering their favorite items to them on their birthday or whatever. It's the social aspect of Fire Emblem that I really, really enjoy. And so for my taste, I absolutely want them to lean into that. I think that's likely. Fire Emblem Three Houses is the best-selling Fire Emblem game by a pretty solid margin. Fire Emblem Engage did not do as well, and was certainly less focused on story.
I've never seen anyone talk about that game after
certainly
like 2 weeks.
Passed by. And so I think I feel lucky in that the kind of Fire Emblem I think is what the next big one is going to be. But I'm a different kind. I'm a different breed of Fire Emblem fan. I don't play on hardcore. I don't care about the battles. I like the world, the story, the characters, and the battles are fine. But if they could make a more RPG, like building up your characters and your relationships version of that game, I would really, really dig it.
Honestly, my biggest request is just like make them shorter, or do something episodic. 100 hour, fucking like 60, 80 hour long tactics game is really, really long. And like, I want to play Fire Emblem, but genuinely I just don't, because they seem like they're really fucking involved in long games.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. And especially if you wanted to go back and play the older games that are notoriously very difficult and don't have the options like were introduced, I think, in like Fates Forward, of rewind and not hardcore mode where you don't lose your guys if they die. That's the reason I don't have any interest in revisiting them. If you're gonna start anywhere, I would just go Three Houses. But I also understand, like, it took a lot for me to want to try it. Yeah, it was really.
Well, I love tactics games. Okay, I really want to play them. It's genuinely just the commitment.
Totally fair, and especially if you wanted to, like, Three Houses, people play like all the different paths of that, and so there's like 5 different playthroughs. It's crazy. God. But yeah, shorter one. I'm never gonna say no to that. Yeah. I would absolutely love a more condensed Fire Emblem.
Or do like a part 1, part 2. Like like include the second half later as like free DLC or something. Or not second half, but like include some extra content later on, because if people get mad about the length. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got in the Discord here. Sith Scott asks, your least favorite Nintendo console and why?
N64.
N64?
I hate the controller. I think the library has largely aged horrendously. And I think it is far, far too overvalued in most discussions about like gaming in the past, right? Yeah. Like I don't know. I think people like in that era of like early 3D games to like the NES. I think it's more of like Atari 2600 era in terms of like how new 3D technology was in video games. I see what you're saying. Yeah. And like I would rather play on like a PS1. I think the PS1 has a much better library than the N64. Yeah. I don't have that much of a connection, nor do I really enjoy Ocarina of Time that much. Yeah. Mario 64 I think is really good for the first half. Yeah. Smash 64 is like fun, but like
as a kind of a novelty.
Yeah, but every other game in the series is more fun.
Yeah. Novelty I think is the key word for me with N64. Of it is revolutionary. A lot of these games in each of these series helped to expand what they were, and the historical value is absolutely there. But I do think that in terms of what you said of it being overvalued, I think that's more of like the games being still considered some of the great games of all time, like maybe some of the most important games of all time. But but I watched a video the other day that's like games that are like true 10 out of 10s, and just like, okay, Ocarina of Time and Mario 64, and I'm like, yeah, I've played these games. I don't agree at all. No. I like Mario 64 a lot.
Yeah, Mario 64 is awesome.
But even on that same console, I think Banjo-Kazooie is just much better Mario 64, just like in every fucking way. And there are just very few.
I'm a hater. I'm a Banjo hater. Yeah.
That'll be a topic for another
I love
day.
those vibes. Don't love those games.
There's some interesting stuff on N64, but I think also it just feels limited.
Yeah.
That pool of important games and games that hold up well.
Star Fox 64 is my favorite, honestly.
Yeah.
I love Star Fox 64.
You can go talk to Abram about that. But yeah, I think it's also N64 for me. I find the pixel art of Super Nintendo and NES to be a lot more visually appealing.
Mm-hmm.
I find that both those systems have a wider variety of games.
Mm-hmm.
There was just less games on N64. It had a relatively shorter life cycle in comparison. Yeah. But the list of cream of the crop games is just really small, and I think it really falls off very quickly,
very quickly
after that. And then you get to what the bulk of, especially the first party library of the N64 is stuff that I think was very quickly replaced. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, well, you want to play Mario Kart? Well, I know people love Mario Kart 64, but I want to play Double Dash or Wii or Mario Kart 8. Yeah. And if I want to play a Mario Golf or Mario Tennis or Mario Party, I'm going to play the newer versions of all of those.
And I don't know. I like coming after what I would argue is probably the greatest console of all time in the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
Like blow for blow. I mean, nowadays I would say it's the Switch.
Yeah.
If we're looking at everything like list to list next to each other, but I think blow for blow, it's more geared towards Super Nintendo in my opinion. But and being followed up by the GameCube, which has probably Nintendo's best controller until the Switch era. I would argue a better version of every single game represented on the N64.
Yeah. They visually, GameCube games hold up so much better.
Amazing.
Actually, I would say of the 2000s Nintendo consoles, GameCube is the one that the visuals hold up the best on. Because N64, well, that's not a 2000s console, but in that like middle era of Nintendo, the early 3D, GameCube even looks better than the Wii.
GameCube or Wii is wildly inconsistent in terms of how good it looks. Like Mario Galaxy, we're like way up here. We're through the ceiling, and then we got like Twilight Princess, which is like admittedly on both things, but like I don't know. Skyward Sword, even like I like the art style, but I don't think the game itself looks very good.
Looks a lot better on Switch.
Yeah,
I tell you that.
I've never played it on either.
The Switch version looks great. But yeah, we are both going N64. I would have to say, because I'm not pulling like Game Boy or Virtual Boy for this. Like I almost feel like those don't count almost because they are so they've been left in the past so far in terms of technology. Mm-hmm. I think to me objectively Game Boy is the not counting Virtual Boy, Game Boy is the weakest. The lineup is really slim. Like how many Game Boy games do people actually talk about? Pokemon, Tetris, Donkey Kong. Maybe that's it. And those games
Link's Awakening.
Yeah, I guess so.
The Oracle games.
Those
DK94.
Yeah, those have Donkey Kong.
Some of the Final Fantasy games. I mean, I think I would put Game Boy higher than N64 personally.
Not even close for me. But I think I also have to say that I'm not a big NES guy. I think NES is a little more interesting to me than N64
so much more interesting.
But
I'm with you though too.
A lot of NES games are not good. They're not fun to play. They're not very interesting. They were completely surpassed by, and I think we can make the clear comparison. N64 to GameCube, NES to Super Nintendo. It's like, well, I'm just gonna play any version on Super Nintendo of any of these series because they're just the more polished, more mechanically interesting, more visually interesting versions of the exact same thing on NES.
Literally. Yeah.
So for me, the easy bottom is N64 and NES.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do. We got time for like one or two more, probably.
Yeah,
depending on.
Wait, hold on. I have responses to my Twitter one.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now.
Oh, okay. You got that pulled up?
Yeah. I like this one from Jacob McCourt.
Okay.
At Jacob McCourt asks, "You're tasked with building a streaming service. You're tasked with building streaming services for Nintendo's back catalog. Tell us your plan." I've been thinking about this one.
Okay.
I was looking at this one. My first thing is to have 4 free games available not just on Switch, but on mobile.
Oh, I see. Okay, we talked a little bit about this last week.
Ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
You have Super Mario Brothers, just the original, everyone knows that game. Anyone who wants to play that game can just hop in and do it. You have, let's see, what are the other? I think some version of a 2D Zelda.
Okay.
Whether that's Link to the Past or the original Zelda, I think that is another one that
it would be Link to the Past.
Yeah, and then I don't know, like probably Super Metroid.
Sure.
And then like Donkey Kong Country.
Okay.
And I think that is like
a little Super Nintendo lineup.
It's like a Super Nintendo lineup with the original Mario Bros. Just to like kind of tease people in, right?
Sure.
Show them, hey,
I like that. Yeah,
we have this thing.
Yeah.
It's free for you to play
and
on
those
your mobile
2D
phone
games,
as long as you create a Nintendo account.
Yeah. And those 2D games would definitely hold up fine on mobile. I mean, people love to emulate Super Nintendo on their goddamn phones.
Oh yeah,
so,
they do.
Yeah, I think that's a great first step. Yeah.
And then if we're getting into streaming, I think this hinges on something that we talked about the last time we recorded: analog triggers.
Oh, what does that have to do with streaming?
Streaming GameCube games.
But yeah, but what that's not has nothing to do with the service.
No, because like you can't. A lot of GameCube games hinge on the analog triggers.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I would say, make anything from the Wii U, Wii, and GameCube era streaming focused, because that can run. But emulating that on a device that is, at least with the Switch, that as powerful as the Switch, could get a little dicey. Unless you fully,
Now, okay, so
rebuild.
What I'm a little bit confused on is we're doing streaming in terms of like an xCloud analog, correct?
Yes,
okay. So, but
because specifically back catalog.
Yeah. Okay. So, but he says building streaming services. I think that's more like what NSO is. That's not a streaming service in like xCloud way, but
that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is like you have consoles, GameCube, and afterwards streaming specifically because it is better for storage space. It is better for.
I mean, GameCube games are tiny. GameCube games are like 4 gigabytes, maybe.
But on a 32 gigabyte console, Nintendo doesn't want that.
I guess so. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And especially Wii games and then Wii U games.
Yeah,
like I think having those on streaming is much better, especially for the Wii U, because if you're streaming it, you're gonna need a second screen. And so if you're streaming it, you have your smartphone as a second screen. Same thing with DS.
Yeah.
That opens up a lot of possibilities. Same thing with 3DS.
Yeah.
Where you want to have that extra screen. You almost need to have that extra screen.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And having that just as in the Switch's current form factor, the best way to do that is to have some kind of smartphone parity. And streaming is the best way to do that, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I didn't take this question to be anything like xCloud, like literally streaming from a cloud to the system. It does make sense in terms of, you're right. Like if you downloaded a GameCube Online app for your no inserted extra storage console, you would be taking up you'd be taking up bare minimum like 20 gigabytes of the internal storage or whatever.
Yeah,
because there are bigger
like
games.
5 GameCube games. I mean, that's
Yeah. But for the services that Nintendo has built, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, I don't think not much needs to be changed. I think NSO is.
I actually really like NSO.
Kind of the ideal service.
That's great.
Basically, all the games are there. There are certainly some exceptions. I think that I actually kind of like the way that they've rolled it out, and when they drop, it's kind of a cool new thing, and they come basically every week or every other week. I actually really like that. It really, to me, is the only thing I would expand for a Nintendo gaming back catalog streaming service for Nintendo is recapture what they did on Wii and Wii U, which is other systems. I'm not saying I would play a lot of TurboGrafx 16 online, but the fact that they made deals with Neo Geo and TurboGrafx to have those systems on the Wii U, the Wii eShop and the Wii U eShop for Virtual Console, I think that it'd be really cool to bring those back, because I would personally say NSO is the best way to experience gaming history right now. It's by far the cheapest of all the streaming services.
For the full suite of features, it's super easy to do multiplayer,
and you've got handheld stuff, you've got console stuff.
The emulation quality is really good for the most part.
And
N64 is a little shaky, I've heard, but
for me, it's not really about Nintendo's back catalog, because I think they've actually done a really good job at covering almost all their bases with their back catalog pre-GameCube.
Yeah.
And obviously it gets a little more complicated and difficult for GameCube and DS and things. But for me, it's we have Genesis online.
Yeah.
Where is Mega Drive Online?
Sure.
Why didn't they do that? Why isn't there a TurboGrafx Online? Why isn't there a Neo Geo Online? I probably wouldn't play any of these, but I think that is important for Nintendo to continue to expand that. And they're running out of their own consoles to do it with. And so other people's consoles, I think, are the right next move. Totally. And I think that's very possible, considering the deals they made for those games to come to the previous virtual consoles.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like something's missing because like, okay, this still feels very complete. But in comparison, it's like, oh, that was something that you could access all those games on Wii and Wii U. You can't access them on the Switch.
I think my one thing that I would add, and this technically isn't streaming or a subscription service, but the option to just own those games.
Oh sure, yeah.
I think
have
that's
a virtual console game.
Yeah, or like if you're subscribed, you get a discount or something, Game Pass style. You know, sure. I think that's kind of important. Let's see. I like this one from Andrew Orozco at Mooglinator on Twitter. Yes, which Nintendo console / handheld is the most durable and likely to survive a 15-foot drop on tile / asphalt? 15 feet.
There's only one answer. It's a fucking Game Boy. The original Game Boy is a brick.
Survived a the fucking Gulf War.
Yeah.
I would say I would say Game Boy or like 2DS.
Oh, the 2DS actually that's a great wedge. Ooh. 2DS is interesting because it has more things that can get damaged, that's like true. The triggers and obviously multiple screens and stuff. 2DS is very, very durable, but I think the objective answer is the Game Boy.
It has to be.
It's mostly because the Game Boy just doesn't have a lot going on externally, and it's just this plastic fucking brick, and it's very structurally sturdy because it's thick.
Yeah.
The problem with other Nintendo systems is they're thin, and so there is the possibility, like with everyone broke their fucking DS. The spine of the DS is probably the weakest thing Nintendo's ever produced on a mass capacity.
Seriously.
Everyone I knew had a broken DS spine, and so all the DSs are out except for the 2DS because it doesn't have a fucking spine.
Yeah. And not only does it not have a spine, it's designed to be thrown by a 2-year-old.
Yes.
Like, if you give that to a child, they're using that shit as a fucking ball. Yeah. They're throwing that shit at the wall and it's bouncing back and they're throwing it.
They're playing fucking pickleball with that. Yep. They're playing
literally
ball. All right.
Everyone's favorite sport.
I think maybe one last one here. Let's take a look at what did Wrigley ask here? I'm just going to read through this and we'll see if we can parse it, all right? Why do you think multiplicative gameplay feels too different to be Zelda for anyone? What does that mean? Is that, maybe that's like the open air puzzle, like multiple ways. So. Okay.
Well, emergent gameplay, as some call it.
He says, because to me, it's always felt like a natural and necessary evolution of the classic lock and key puzzle design of previous games, and a solution to everyone's two biggest complaints about past games. That being, some of these items are great, but it's pretty lame that they're situational. And that aside from Majora's... he gets really into the fucking weeds here.
I know. I have an answer for this.
Okay. Why do you think multiplicative gameplay feels too different to be Zelda? Okay, I
disagree.
Because there are a lot of people that are in a traditional Zelda format. And actually,
they're boomers.
Yes, and Aaron Boomer is actually one of them. Aaron Boomer, who says, like, man, I really miss the one solution to a puzzle gameplay of traditional Zelda games. That's what Zelda is, and so Tears of the Kingdom's like, there's too many solutions. That's not Zelda anymore. Which is not exactly what Abram says, but he feels it in his heart.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting take because like that one solution thing in theory is really nice to talk about because it works all the time in theory. In practice, it doesn't.
No,
the amount of times I've like played a 3D Zelda game, done the right thing, had it not work because of like the angle at which I was trying to do it or something, because of how rigid old 3D Zelda game. This is why I don't like Ocarina of Time that much, because I've had this happen multiple times where it is so specific, where even if you're doing the right thing in the right place at the right time with the right weapon, unless you're angled perfectly, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I think that shit is not just bad, I think it drags down every single other positive element of those games.
This guy's so cool, dude. I should host a podcast with this guy.
Yeah,
I totally agree. And frankly, I don't think I would have liked Zelda very much if I had gotten into it pre-Breath of the Wild. It really was the fact that Breath of the Wild was open and shrines could be approached from multiple ways, and they were more bite-sized, and they were very focused, and it was very clear what the goal was, and then within that goal, you're able to approach it from multiple angles. And Tears of the Kingdom is even better at all that. I don't think I would have liked Zelda if I had started with... I think I did play like a little Wind Waker and a little Ocarina of Time before I played Breath of the Wild, but I would get to a dungeon, and this is my worst Zelda take. I don't really like dungeons in Zelda. Being in the open
2D, actually.
Oh yeah, 2D ones are fine. I've actually like traditional 2D Zelda a lot more than I like traditional 3D Zelda. But the fact that I would get to a temple or a shrine or whatever in Ocarina of Time, and then it'd be like, okay, so you have to like know that this thing that's like hidden behind a wall, and like there's like the puzzles to me felt so esoteric because there was only one solution that they for me felt very like I needed to use a guide, as opposed to using my own ingenuity and understanding of the gameplay
and the tools that you're presented with. Yeah,
exactly. I think it's a clear step back, and why I don't think they'll ever. I'm not just saying ever, but why I don't think they are going to approach puzzle design mostly in that way in the future. And we're seeing that with Echoes of Wisdom, which is taking the explorative and more emergent type tenets of the new 3D ones, the open air 3D ones, and applying it to 2D. I mean, I think there's a very strong chance that it's at least my favorite 2D Zelda, if not the best 2D Zelda. Sure. I sincerely doubt it would ever dethrone like Link to the Past. But yeah, I think that people why does the multiplicative, which is a very interesting word. I've actually never heard that applied to this. But I think we figured out what he meant. Yeah. Why do people think it is too different to be Zelda, quote unquote? And I think that's just because Zelda had been one way for so long.
Yeah, I mean
that there was no other option, and so many people, most Zelda fans, from a historical standpoint, enjoyed the series because it delivered this puzzle and action for
very much like Pokemon.
Exactly, but that is no longer the case for a significant margin.
Yeah,
the most popular Zelda games, both of them, are in the open air format. I would be shocked if Echoes of Wisdom isn't the best-selling 2D Zelda at a certain point.
Totally.
And so going for the future, I think that the more linear one solution puzzle focus of the older games, I think that will go by the wayside, not permanently necessarily, but for a long time, because people like the open air multiple solutions puzzle format more than they like the older format. It just seems to be the case. But Zelda fans that are like, because also my least favorite thing about Zelda fans are not as annoying as Pokemon fans. They're not as annoying as
they're not as toxic as Pokemon fans.
True. My least favorite thing that Zelda fans say is, oh, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom aren't true Zelda games, as we're talking about here, but also you're not a true Zelda fan if you've only played these games or if you prefer these games.
Again,
like, shut the fuck up. These are not only great Zelda games, they are the most current Zelda games, and so they are most indicative of what Zelda is at the current moment, but they're also the most popular Zelda games. And so, like, you're just wrong. I fucking hate that.
Don't you have Social Security to collect? You know what I mean? Don't you have a housing market to ruin?
Yeah.
Don't you have an environment to destroy?
All right. Anything else?
We have some other questions, but we are running out of time. Yes. Sadly, it's on me.
Yeah.
But maybe we can
is an hour-long
reconvene to do some more some more questions.
That's what friend code
is. That is what friend coded is. You're right. But we still have we probably only got through 2/3 of the questions.
Yeah.
So,
but it is time to say goodbye to the in-person Q&A episode here on Nintendo Select Podcast. Thank you very much, everyone, especially for submitting. But of course, if you are watching this and you want to be involved with future episodes, because we do want questions from our audience, we do want responses from our audience, you can follow both of us on Twitter, which is in the description, and also my Discord server for Backlog Banter is linked in the description. We got a lot of great responses there. We are able, with Discord versus Twitter, able to inspire a lot of conversations, people talking about some of the questions that were asked in there. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Charlie?
Yeah. Tucker,
you slept in my house.
I slept in your bed.
You slept in my bed. Yeah, I slept on the couch over there because I'm a gracious host.
That's right. But
we covered a lot of bases here today, and we will see you guys next time for another episode of Nintendo Select.
That was exactly where my mind went after making that completely random sound. Okay.
This guy's fucking clicking and clacking.
Okay, I've got look at this shit. It's fucking.
Oh. In here. And then you set up the little keyboard.
Go to fucking emails. Okay, if it would.
Uh oh.
There we go. And we fucking. Bada bing. Bada boom. Look at that.
Oh, he's God. He's the best. He's
correct at emails. Nobody's as good at emails as me.
Nobody emails quite like me.
I'm the fastest email in the West. The Midwest, that is.